Hello, hello, hello. This is Gretch from the I Am CEO podcast, and I have a very special guest on the show today. I have Dr. Funke Afolabi-Brown. Dr. Funke, it's great to have you on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, super excited to have you on and talk about all the awesome things that you're doing. And of course, before we jump into doing that, I want to read a little bit more about Dr. Funke so you can hear about all the awesome things that she's doing. And Dr. Funke is a triple board certified medicine physician and pediatric pulmonologist. She is the Restful Sleep MD, where she helps high achieving women and their children change their relationship with sleep so they can move from being drained and exhausted to thriving in their families, careers, and relationships. She achieves this through her clinical practice, coaching, speaking, and organizational consultation. She is a best-selling author and has been featured on various media outlets, including ABC. She obtained her sleep medicine training at the University of Pennsylvania. And what I absolutely love about Dr. Funke is that she talked a little bit about in an interview that I was reading that her dad was a civil engineer with a PhD in concrete engineering, and her mom was also a librarian. And it said it taught her a lot about and hard work and how important that is. And I think like going through all the awesome content that she creates and has across her YouTube, and you learn so much. And I'm definitely going to binge this like a Netflix series once I get the opportunity to do that. But I think so many times when you think about sleep, you don't think about it being something that you can work at. So I really appreciate all the awesome work that you're doing, Dr. Funke. Appreciate it even more that we're going to have a great conversation. Are you ready to speak to the IMCO community?
Yes, yes, I'm so thrilled to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, absolutely. So to kind of kick everything off, what I wanted to do was rewind the clock a little bit, hear a little bit more on how you got started, what I call your CEO story.
Yeah, so I think I realized sleep was a thing right from when I was in, I would say medical school, right? Like as a physician, and I connect that really to CEO, to leaders of organizations, right? Sleep is just not a thing because there's so much more of the world you want to conquer. And so I tried to do that by burning the candle on both ends. As a hyperachiever, I just kept pushing my body to limits that were unsafe. And this continued through my early training, through the first few years of motherhood and working as a physician. And I found myself almost at the point where I was completely burnt out. I was anxious and exhausted. And that motivated me to say, okay, something needs to change because I'm not going to last if I continue with this version of myself. And so I discovered how powerful sleep was and how much of it I had lost. And so I started to set boundaries for my own well being and work on improving my sleep as a way of improving my self care. And that changed everything. And so it was almost like you see something and you really can't unsee the benefits. I really needed to get the word out. And so started to talk about it. And that motivated me to get my sleep fellowship. And then I started seeing parents show up in my clinic with their kids not sleeping, but the parents were not sleeping. And it became more of a, well, it's not just about fixing the child's sleep here. Like these are like sometimes, multi-generational issues and narratives that people have heard. Like if you're sleeping, you're lazy, you sleep when you're dead, there's no room for sleeping. You hustle and grind until you burn. And so I realized I needed to move this to a bigger scale outside of the four walls of my exam room. And so that was where I started Restful Sleep MD, where I really focused on high achieving women because I know what it's like to feel like you're a superwoman and the savior of the world and not ever giving time for yourself. And so I've done this through so many avenues, like I talked about. So I'm speaking on platforms, I'm teaching, organizing workshops, and speaking at workshops, as well as through my clinical practice. And it's been an incredible journey.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And in those phrases, it's so funny that you say that because I found myself telling myself that as well too. And it's so dangerous. They say the tongue and the power of the words that you say are so powerful in so many different ways because they start to come to fruition like in your life and even in your sleep or lack of sleep at that. So it's so powerful that you're paying attention to those things. But one of the things I really loved, and I feel like you were touching around it, and I feel like I talked about it a little bit in your bio, is that word relationship. And I never really saw sleep as a relationship, but it sounds like you went through that process yourself and been able to kind of empower people to really understand that and understand ultimately how to have that better relationship.
Yeah, no, I used to actually say, right, it's always about, right, as this is a we're talking to CEOs here. It's about that message, right? So initially I would say, yeah, I help people prioritize sleep. And it started to almost feel as if it was something else you have to do, like an additional work, right? But I realized it was beyond just prioritizing it. It was really changing um, that narrative in our minds about what sleep is and what sleep does for us. Sleep is our best friend. And so instead of seeing sleep as a nuisance, as something that you have to do at the end of the day, but really seeing it like a life changing opportunity every night. Like I have an appointment with what is going to help my brain, my heart, my memory, my executive decision making skills, my emotional intelligence, my relationships, right? So it's not just a thing, it is the thing upon which most of other things are founded. There's really just as important as air, just as important as water and diet and food, sleep is so critical. In fact, there is one condition where you're not able to sleep, and it's called fatal familial insomnia. So this is a very rare condition where you have some genetic risks that makes you unable to sleep, and those people die within months of that diagnosis. It just shows
Wow.
that you cannot go without sleep. So again, it's not just something to prioritize, but something to really change what narratives you're telling yourself about sleep.
Yeah, I love that, and especially like looking at it from being like your best friend because it does spill into all aspects of your life. Like you mentioned, your relationship, your decision making, just so many different things. And I think just like your best friend, there's like this quote where it says a lot of times we'll talk, badly to ourselves, but will we ever use that same language to our best friend? And I feel like that also extends to like sleep, the way that we don't prioritize sleep, the way that we don't approach it and say, hey, I'll do this when I'm dead, or hey, I'll do
Mm,
this, or makes me weak. All those things I feel like, doesn't put your best friend in the best place. And
mm.
that affects us in so many different ways.
Yeah, yeah, you're absolutely right. It's I love that. I love that you would treat your best friend well
Yes.
with respect, and so we treat others very well, but we forget to pay attention to what our bodies need, and our bodies do need rest, especially when you're at the level of a CEO and you're making such critical decisions for yourself, for your business, and for your employees as well. You really can't afford not to sleep.
Yeah, and that's so powerful to say. Can't afford not
Mhm.
to. People say they can't afford to do that, but you can't afford not to do that, which I think is so much more powerful. So I know you touched on it a little bit on how you work with your clients. Would love to hear a little bit more on like what that looks like. I know there's a lot of different ways that you help to reach people where they are. Could you take us through a little bit more on what that looks like supporting your clients?
Yeah, yeah. So I have a practice. It's the Restful Sleep Police. It's a direct care practice, meaning that I have this system where patients can get to me, not go through any loopholes or third party or anything. And we treat sleep from a very holistic lens. So we're not just saying, oh yeah, you need to go get 7 to 9 hours of sleep. We're figuring out why are you waking up tired? Why are you having a hard time falling asleep? Why is your mind racing at bedtime? What is going on during your day? What has to do with boundaries? So it's a combination of clinical work and coaching as well. Sometimes it ends up people are coming in saying they're tired, but it's because they're doing too much. So we help with time management, creating systems in place so that you're able to sleep. And so even though the end goal is to get you sleep, the end goal is actually to get you less tired, more functional, to perform well. And so through that, I mean, so I see, again, like I said, women, I see kids and young adults as well. And we have different packages for that. Sometimes we may need to work on this for weeks, for 8 weeks or so. There's sometimes when you just need more of like a strategy session. You're a high achiever. You're like, I got to reset my internal clock because I can't get up at I don't know, 6 a.m. I need help with that. And we come up with a strategy for that. But then sometimes it's a lot more mindset and coaching that we do. So those are different things. And then also I speak at workshops and help with facilitating sleep workshops for organizations, employees, teams, where we kind of do a deep, in-depth analysis of sleep and have, I give you tools that you can use to kind of screen if you have a sleep disorder, figure out what else is going on, figure out from a really bigger holistic lens, like how can we move forward? How can our performance improve as an organization without necessarily feeling like we're working less? And so some of those things are also something that I'm really passionate about.
Nice. I love that. And you have so many different ways that you, again, reach out and connect and make that impact. But I think what you said really resonated with me because I think so many times we're trying to get, 25 hours out of a 24-hour
Mhm,
day. And we're always looking at that. But I almost feel like a lot of it is how are we going to be able to be more effective, especially as like
mhm,
CEOs, entrepreneurs, and business owners. And we sometimes forget that resting, prioritizing, understanding maybe even why, you might be up or can't go to sleep or wake whatever that might be. Sometimes the thing that allows you to take that hour, take that 2 hour, whatever the time is, and you're more effective because you're
yeah.
well rested, because you have those things off of your mind and off of your plate. It sounds like that's a lot of what you have those conversations about.
Yeah, yeah. You know what I even say? Like, I think I posted a couple of days ago on social media that if you find out that you're hitting a wall, right? You have a deadline and you're trying to grind till the end, but you're like, I can't even remember what I've done in the last 2 hours. I feel like I just blanked out. Or you're reading the line again and again, or the concepts that's really hard for you to grasp, you are saturated, you need to go to bed. So instead of trying to extend, it's already maybe your bedtime is 10 p.m. You're like, I gotta just do this till 1 a.m. Those 3 hours have just been wasted.
Mhm.
You can literally have gone to bed much earlier, rest, get your brain, because our brain goes through a cleansing action when we sleep. The deposits on the surface of our brain that build up over the course of the day, which impacts memory, it impacts executive decision making, all that stuff. So you need to almost have detoxified with sleep and then come back to that task. And they've done this in so much research where even there was one where they had someone playing the piano, trying to learn a new piece of music on the piano, just couldn't figure it out. Tried the same thing again and again and again. Went to bed, woke up the next morning, and those same exact pieces of music came back and played it effortlessly. What was the difference? That cleansing, that rest, that restoration. So if your work performance is declining, it doesn't mean you need to hustle harder. It probably means you need to step back, go to bed, and then memory consolidation, synapses, neuronal connections are going on during sleep. That is what you need. That is your super pill. So really, it's around those kind of mindset shifts that I get to help people optimize their performance.
Yeah, I love that you said that a mindset shift because I think there's that hustle culture, there's that,
Mhm,
grind and grind and grind. You need to just want to do one extra hour. But
mhm,
I think that's so powerful because when you are kind of trying to figure out or solve a problem, especially you hear often that if you go for a walk, you take a shower, you take the dog, whatever it is, you
mhm,
come back with that solution, not while
mhm,
you're doing it, not when you're grinding, not when you're trying to figure it out. So often, like, and of course, I'm no scientist or anything or a doctor, but it's those, I guess, those neural connections that are
mhm,
firing while you're away that really
mhm,
provides you that opportunity. So same thing with sleep, where you're saying, okay, I have to work through this problem or I have to get more done. You're probably being more efficient, more inefficient, I should say,
mhm.
by doing that rather than taking some time and probably being a lot more effective when you come back to it.
Yep, yep, that's exactly right. That's
Yeah.
exactly.
Nice. Well, I
Mhm.
might have to call myself Dr. G. So there you go. I like
Ah,
that. Okay. So, what would you consider to be your secret sauce in the company and the organization? Is it that ability to be able to kind of understand that, to understand not just like how important sleep is, but just how that manifests itself in so many different ways? Like you mentioned, maybe having too big of a to-do list. Is it that holistic part? Do you feel like that's what kind of sets you apart and makes you unique?
yes, I would say so. Again, I'm a I consider myself a high achiever, right? I want to get to those goals. But I think I'm constantly, because I understand the impact of sleep and rest on my performance and on my well-being and productivity, it allows me to step back to pay more attention to my body and what it needs, to listen to my mind and the thoughts that are coming up and really address them. I think that's really important because sometimes, within this space, there are people that are light years ahead of you. There's sometimes the feeling of imposter syndrome. You might try something and it fails, and you may just feel like there are feats that are really unsurmountable. But when you step back and listen to the narrative that's running in your mind, you'll be able to say, okay, how much of these are actually true? I'm not a failure. No, I just learned one way not to do something. But when I'm drained and exhausted, I make myself more susceptible to those thoughts, those defeated thoughts, that then it makes it hard for me to move forward. So it ends up starting from a place of rest and sleep, but then it kind of trickles into every other area. Like my body might be tired. My mind is tired. I need rest. And then when I come back to that situation and say, oh, why on earth did I think I failed? No, I didn't. Right. So it really does change everything for me.
Yeah, that's so powerful, and just thinking how that can manifest itself in so many different ways. Or I guess if you're going through those, I guess experience, or you have those thoughts, or wondering, have that, I'm not, maybe I'm not good enough. Do are those like some of the warning signs, for lack of a better term, when people may not be getting that amount of sleep? Is it things like that?
That's a possibility. Yes, it might be because one of the benefits of sleep is emotional regulation. So when you are someone who maybe has and we've already seen this in science, there's a completely tight correlation between mood and mental health issues and sleep. There are also correlations between resilience and sleep. There are also correlations between empathy for yourself, for others, and sleep. So think of that: anxiety, depression, resilience, emotions. You want to be happy, right? You want to be in a sound, you want to wake up feeling motivated. You want to be empathic to yourself. You want to be gentle. We keep talking about show yourself grace, but if you're sleep deprived, you have a mask on. You can't show yourself grace. You're hard on yourself, right? Your amygdala, which is the emotional part of your brain, is not regulated. So it's firing like a wild cave woman or a caveman when you don't sleep well. And so those stories, those thoughts, they seem to be more real when you're sleep deprived, right? Motivation goes down, right? Think of the day when you didn't sleep, you had a crappy night of sleep. You don't feel like going to the gym. You're like, no, I want to just roll over and just stay in bed all day, right? You do not feel motivated. You're like, what dream? What business?
Exactly.
So every one of those things does tie to your sleep.
Yeah, I appreciate you so much in sharing that. And I think, sometimes, when listening to this, you might say, okay, this is actually me. So being able to kind of understand how it manifests itself is so huge, because sometimes I think that we have that mentality of like, I'll sleep when I'm dead. I'm gonna
Mm,
power through for another hour or two. And I think that, that is sometimes a direct result of the conversations we're having sometimes with ourselves,
mm.
and how that might manifest itself in our lives, and definitely in our business as well too.
Yep, that's so true. That is so true.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, I wanted to switch gears a little bit, and I wanted to ask you for what I call a CEO hack. So this could be like an app, a book, or even a habit that you have, but what's something that makes you more effective and efficient?
There are few of them. I mean, of course, I'm going to tell you sleep again.
Yes, yes, I expected that. On brand, right?
I know, on brand, on brand. Another thing I use as a hack, especially for someone who does, a lot of my work is through either telemedicine or virtual and things like that, is I use naps. I nap.
Mm,
So people, I'm sure if you go out in the space, you hear, oh no, you shouldn't take a nap. I use nap strategically. So if I've worked for a bit, there are a few things I do. I take a break, of course. So I may take a walk. I may walk on my treadmill while having a meeting. So exercise is good. It enhances and increases those endorphins that keeps you motivated. And then also Sometime during the day, if you're starting to feel that slump where you're tired and you're not feeling too motivated, take a nap, like a 10 to 15-minute nap. It's not too early. I'm sorry, not too late. So maybe by, you don't want to nap after about 2 or 3 p.m. because then you're not going to sleep well at night.
Right.
So I personally will do that. Not every day, of course, but sometimes if I do feel tired, I might. So that's one thing. And then another thing that I would say has been really on actually the main life-changing thing is making sure I follow my morning routines. My morning routines are as important as my nighttime routine. So a lot of times people talk about having a bedtime routine, something that's calming and relaxing before bed. But I have a morning routine that really jump starts my day. It starts with prayer and affirmations. I am a believer, so I study the word. So I spend some time reading my Bible and just kind of declaring the type of day I want to
Mm,
see and manifest. And then I exercise. So that's where I'll do, a little workout. And after that, I'll read, so do some personal development on my own, and then I get started.
mm.
And I think that just frames my day and gives me control. I do not go anywhere near my phone in terms of emails, or because then that just sucks you in.
Yeah.
I try to avoid any of those within the first 1 to 2 hours of my day.
Nice. I appreciate you breaking that down, and of course, you know how powerful, especially naps are. Do you feel or do you find, and let me know because I feel like you're saying this, but I want to make sure I understand this. By doing that morning routine, that does help you out throughout your day, even at the end of your day when you're sleeping as well, right?
Absolutely, because exercise is great. For your mood, again, to drive your sleep pressure, to increase your sleep pressure. It's good for your mood. And then, again, you'll have moments during the day where your energy will ebb and flow. So it almost as if it gives you an anchor to go back to, like, okay, what's going in here? What's going on here? Really. And then I would just throw in, just take moments to check in with yourself, right? Because sometimes we're in the flow and just like so carried away that, we're firing on all cylinders, but and we're burning so much energy cognitively. So take time to just check in with yourself. Like, how am I feeling right now? Where's my energy at? Am I anxious? Am I, am I feeling exhausted, overwhelmed? Because when we don't check in with ourselves, that's part of what contributes to that mind racing at that time, because you haven't dealt with those thoughts. You may have gotten an email that annoyed you. You may have gotten something that scared you, some bad
Mhm.
news, but making sure you take a moment to just process it. How's that feeling for me right now, right? If not, it's already there in your mind. So if you've not taken time to work on it sometime during the day, during these breaks, it's going to come up at night for you. It's going to make you wake up again and say, oh man, that email. Now, what am I going to do? What am I going to say? And then you'll have no hard time sleeping. So sometimes that contributes to the mind racing that a lot of CEOs experience.
Yeah, I appreciate you so much in breaking that down. So even being able to just like ask those questions, I've even heard things like journaling, things like that, to be
Mhm.
able to express those things that sometimes we could just race through and not pay attention and ask
Yep.
ourselves how we're feeling. Those things can definitely help us out, overall.
Absolutely. That's right. Journaling is one of my main ways to process all those thoughts. Journaling, meditation, prayer, breathing, so it's really important to do that.
Awesome. I absolutely love that, Dr. Funke. So,
Mm.
what would you consider to be a little bit more of a CEO nugget? We might have already touched on this, but it could be like a word of wisdom or piece of advice that you might give to your favorite client, or as I like to say, if you were to hop into a time machine, you might tell your younger business self.
Yeah, man, it would be just keep going. It's not like literally there's that straight line of progress we think, and then we see the real progress, what it looks like, and it is a wiggly line. But I can't remember where I read this. It may have been Brian Tracy, one of his books, where he said, as long as you're putting one foot in front of the other, you will get to a destination. The only way you will not is either if you go backwards or you stop moving at all. So keep going. you'll start to see it all come together. There will be moments to want to give it up. Of course, you have to be realistic with yourself. So checking in to see where you're going relative to where you set up initially, and if you're aligned with your goals, because changes will come. You may need to pivot, but don't give up.
Yeah, rest if you must, but just don't quit. And it's
Mhm.
so funny. I say that the success path is a lot much more like a plate of spaghetti than we realize. It has all those squiggly lines. You're going round and around and around.
Yeah.
But I love and how powerful that is to just remember to take one foot in front of the other. Because if you're continuing to move forward, and even if it's not forward, I think if you're continuing to move, you start to realize that okay, I need
Mhm.
to change here. I need to actually move forward, so I'm going the right way. But if you're not moving, it becomes a lot harder for those things to happen, for those adjustments to
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah. And there'll be pauses. Pauses are okay, but not an absolute stop. So what does a pause look like? A pause is the rest.
Yeah.
A pause is spending time reflecting. A pause is a vacation. A pause is prioritizing sleep, right? Because like you said, we would love 26 hours in a day if we
Yeah.
could, right?
Yes.
But you can't. You only have, I usually tell people you only have 16 because you're supposed to be sleeping 8 hours. So make those 16 hours count by prioritizing your sleep.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's so powerful when you're able to kind of understand that and do that. So now I want to ask you my absolute favorite question, which is the definition of what it means to be a CEO. And our goal is to have different quote unquote CEOs on the show. So Dr. Funke, what does being a CEO mean to you?
But CEO to me means creating impact in a way that aligns with your values. So I want to change the world. I want to change the narrative of sleep, but I want to do it in a version that's most authentic to me. I want to do it without sacrificing my health, my wellness, my family, my peace. And the only way I could truly achieve that was to create a life that I dreamed of. I'm not there yet, but I'm very well on my way. That's what a CEO is to me.
Nice. I absolutely love that, and I feel like even around dreams, sometimes they're so grand that
Mm,
if we ever reach there, we probably haven't dreamed as big as we could dream. But
mm,
I'm such a believer in the parable of the talents. I know you mentioned being a believer, and the thing that I really love about that, and what made this come up for me when you talked about living and creating within your values, I feel like we all have those talents, those gifts, those things that we have that are unique to us. And it's
mm,
our responsibility to kind of share that out and to create that and to make that impact. So I love that definition because I think so many times I always say, if you run your own race, you can't lose. So sometimes
mm,
we're looking into somebody else's lane or somebody
mm,
else's race and saying, hey, I want to do that. But I think if we stay true to our values, our gifts, the things that
mm,
we have, our talents, and lean into
mm.
that, do that as best as possible, then that really puts us in the right place.
Yep. No, that is true. If you're compare, which is why comparison is one of the most deadly things we can do within this space, because you don't know what their values are. Somebody else's values are like what family, right? Or what physical health. And so when you see them light years ahead and compare, that's unfair to you because you are grounded in your own truth. And so comparing yourself to someone who is grounded in their own truth is really comparing like literally apples to stones, not even apples to oranges. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's whole in two entirely different things. So,
Mhm.
Dr. Fouquet, truly appreciate that definition. Of course, I appreciate your time even more. So, what I wanted to do now was pass you the mic, so to speak, just to see if there's anything additional that you can let our readers and listeners know. And of course, how best people can get a hold of you, find about all the awesome things that you are working on.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure talking with you today. I've enjoyed our conversation. I think my word of advice is wherever you are on this journey, if you're exhausted, if you're tired, if you feel like you're hitting a lot of roadblocks, check in with yourself. It might be because you're tired, and it's time for you to start a shift where sleep is on your priority list and start to make it a priority. And there's a cheesy saying I say, which is prioritize sleep and radiate your inner brilliance. And it's very profound, even if it's cheesy. The reason why is we all have a light that we've been called to shine. to our worlds, and a city on a hill cannot be hidden. But then, if you load up that light with exhaustion, sleep deprivation, negative self talk, all that stuff is going to be hard for you to radiate it. So, when you pick sleep, I will say sleep because I'm biased, I guess. Um, you're able to shed those things because it helps you put things in perspective. In terms of where to find me, I'm on social media as Restful Sleep MD. My website is RestfulSleepMD.com. If you're wondering where to start with your sleep, you can actually download and create healthy sleep habits sheet that I have on my website. So if you subscribe to my newsletter, it'll come into your mailbox. And that's a good place to start in terms of what are evidence-based strategies to even start to figure out the sleep thing. And if you're someone who is navigating these waters and you're up all night unable to sleep, reach out. Let's talk. I do have spots in my coaching program. I would love to coach you and help you get your sleep right back on track.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. And Dr. Funke, just to clarify too, you don't have to necessarily be located in a physical area for you to be able to help support, right?
No, exactly. Yeah. You don't have to be, yeah, through my coaching program. My clinical practice, yes, but just get on a call with me first and let's talk. You could connect on my website and then we'll be able to figure out and navigate that. But yeah, there are no state restrictions to my coaching.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. I truly appreciate that. And of course, to make everything a lot easier, we're going to have the links and information in the show notes as well, too, so that everybody can follow up with you, get that free downloadable and find out about all the awesome things that you're working on. But I love that cheesy saying, I love cheese. So I think it's something that's phenomenal. And I think as people that are trying to do brilliant things that are a lot of times type A, that are trying to really change the world, I think so many times we forget that as we battle and fight and hustle and do all these things, we forget about sometimes that foundational element, which is that sleep. So truly appreciate all the awesome work that you're doing. Appreciate your time today. And I hope you have a phenomenal rest of the day.
Thank you.